we'll get into it a bit while we do some reviewing of last week. And I told you guys transparently I was still looking for a contest last week, something I felt really confident in because there was a lot of just adjustable pieces with new depth charts. Some teams were still playing for the playoffs. Some teams were still being competitive, while other teams were basically treating it like a off-season tryout period.
Well, last week everyone was like out or in at that point, so it was really weird.
Right. So, but I'm saying like I didn't have a lot of confidence. So there was a lot of coaching decisions where they're like, oh, we're going to try to give this quarterback some tape, or we're going to try to do this. And so I just didn't. I liked a lot of what we talked about, like our cores, and you can see I actually found a 25-cent competition that had all 4 games in it, because that was really what was most irritating. Was most of the big prize pools were for the single entry. Luckily, this week, Donnie, they went back to offering a $1.20 entry max, which I think is a better way to go. But this week specifically, we'll get into it, and I just think reviewing is a good way to look at it, because we'll look at some of the more prominent star players this week by doing so. But this week, there's a lot of moving pieces in the starting lineups.
Well, I do know there is a min-priced quarterback this week.
Yeah, so. More than likely there's more than one this week. So,
yes, no one has much to play for.
Yeah, and it looks like Jamar Smith will be the highest owned. Like if you want to spend the salary, he will be, most likely the quarterback. But even then, they might give Alex the backup some minutes there. So I do think you have to have a conviction this week, and I'm glad I'm only playing one lineup. The last week I had no problem playing all 4 in this 25-cent competition because I felt like there was a lot of quarterbacks you could choose from. So was there anything last week, because I know you haven't paid a lot of attention this week, is there anything last week you want to point out that could be like a playoff preview or anything like you see as a trend?
The only thing is it all goes back to, it's so tough to see every single time.
Mm-hmm.
The Michigan just can't get over this Birmingham hump. They're 6-0, or they've lost 6 straight to Birmingham. 0-6 since the league's been around.
Mm-hmm.
It's going into the playoffs, knowing that it's in Birmingham again.
You do like more like statistical.
I mean, that's just at some point it's mentally exhausting.
I don't.
And those two teams were trying.
They were, but I don't think
the last play that Michigan ran, where it was the 4th down on the goal line, that was not their best play call, and they know it. They weren't going to give their best play call in that situation to go. But it feels weird. It feels weird that they just can't. It's every time it's something weird that happens with them. They just fall apart.
But you think there's actually some carryover, like they're starting to believe it? Because I just feel like this league, the way it's so transactional and like rosters change, and we're still in like the
Birmingham's pretty much the same exact team, and so is Michigan. Like you have Toa Toa coming in to being the new starting running back, but overall it's relatively the same.
Yeah,
these are the 2 most consistent non-rostering changing teams.
Maybe you're right though. Like this is what you want. You want the history. Like that's when you know a league is doing good, is when they're building these kind of storylines and these points. I do think the play. Like I've been saying it for a while now, and I've seen it across the media landscape too. When people talk about this league, I mean, Kurt Menefee was actually on a podcast speaking about his NFL broadcasting, and he brought up UFL. He's like, I know people haven't been paying attention to this league as much as they would the NFL, but he said this is the best version of spring football he has seen since he signed on to do it. He's like, it's not like where it needs to be, and it's definitely developmental still, but this is some really good football. I think it's going to carry over to the playoffs. I think we're going to see our highest scoring games, not even offense, just like efficient games. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like these playoff games are going to be good. But there's still money to be had this week. I think, I have a lot on the depth chart. I know you haven't paid attention a lot this week, which is good because you can kind of give me your gut reaction, whether you think it's something to believe in or not. Because we do have, basically you can play anyone you want this week based on the openings, because there's a cheap guy basically at every position in your lineup.
After last week, who finally had a really good game, and we've already played him once, but we would have never played him again. Lorenzo Lingard. We played him week 1 because he was listed as a starter. He came in this past week and had 8 rushes for 80 yards and a touchdown. He went off.
Well, what's funny about that is it killed a lot of people had a White, because remember, White was starting to get consistent. He had the most, rushing yards up, in a 2-week or 3-week span. So he was, I want to say, like 30 or 40% owned, Donnie, and then he snowflaked this week. I wanted to believe your research, and I knew it was valid that Perry was starting. There was just so many quarterbacks that were mispriced. That's why I love this quarter contest that I entered, because it was like I think it was 10 injury max or something like that. And I'm like, I can basically put all the quarterbacks and just mix and match them. And that's what I did. But this is basically our core. Like, these are a lot of the guys we talked about. I played I played one of the cheap San Antonio wide receivers. I was always playing Justin Hall. Justin Hall has been the most consistent player. Basically, we thought it was Sailors, coming into the year, and Justin Hall has been the gold standard. His price is high, but this is exactly the price and the workload we expected from a Sailors DFS player, and he hasn't disappointed. I'm going to play him basically unless you prevent me from playing him this week in the lineup, Donnie.
Right.
I don't think there's a better payout, because Houston's basically out, but they're going to be playing their
everything's set. Everything's set already. So it's just the only weird game that's is going to be interesting is St. Louis and DC will be playing in the playoffs next week. DC has shown they're playing their third string quarterback. They're not showing anything. St. Louis, on the other hand, right now has it listed that they're playing their starters.
Well, St. Louis they're going to basically do what the Buffalo Bills did in the last week. They're basically going to start their starters for prosperity perspective and basically give them the start, but they're not expected to play any more than the first quarter, was the report I had heard. With wide receivers potentially playing the most because of Butler and Pearson just not being on the field very much, they might work on that chemistry, but they're only projecting Duggan to play maybe a quarter. And then the only reason they're starting Sailors is because he actually has a chance at Offensive Player of the Year. And I didn't know this, Donnie, but I found out that anyone who wins an award gets a slight bonus in this league.
Of course, that's every league.
See, that's the thing. I didn't even know about it in the NFL, because it's just not publicized because they make so much money in their base salary.
I mean, the NBA is the biggest bonus for making
I didn't know that, but I don't know what that is. I guess it's just like those leagues are already established, and I just feel like that doesn't actually, it's not enough money to matter to the player.
In the NBA, it does.
Is it?
In the NBA, it can make the difference of $100 million.
Fair. So you know that. So but I'm assuming in this league, especially with their base salaries, it matters.
Yes. In this league, it really matters.
So Sailors might play a bit longer, but even still, they're their coach was like, you know what, winning a championship is better for their projections and their outlook for getting a preseason team.
So how much salary do you think is too much in a week like this to leave on the table?
Well, it's an interesting discussion, because I haven't actually built with all the information I have. So I don't know, but I'm assuming that most lineups will have anywhere from 1,000 to 800 left.
Because my dummy lineup has 1,300. Which I usually, left. And I usually leave a solid 500 on the table. I over doubled that.
Yeah. I could see leaving 1,000 just because of the 6,000 quarterback. That's a huge deal. Yeah, I am playing a 6K quarterback. I am 100% certain of that. I mean, I would too. DC said they're going to use, I don't even remember his name, DeMarco.
DeLillo? I don't know.
I think it's DeLillo. I just looked. But he had 200 yards passing and only a half of football. And he is projected to play at least a half, most likely into the third quarter, is what they're reporting in DC.
And the Panthers are playing Lombardi, who hasn't seen any action this year, but it's a run-heavy team, and that's why I would lean to DeLillo. But
So are they starting him for sure? Because I heard there was a rumor.
Lombardi 100% is the starter, yes.
Is he the starter? Okay. And then it looks like Williams and Wynn are gonna split touches potentially. And like I said, it's only basically just so the starters with the Battlehawks basically can say they were starters, so they can get the Ironman streak. They can get some kind of street credit with their coach. Essentially, Duggan might only play the first quarter. Like I said, the wide receivers though are like the one sneaky one. What do you think about that, Donnie? That's actually a good point because I do think Pearson and Butler maybe are the best duo in the league, but they haven't played together much, and that was what their coach was saying. That like that's
maybe,
why they went.
But see, it's hard to say this because they don't really. But Houston could have the best receiver duo in the league.
Yeah. Oh, Silver.
They might.
That's why I brought up Duggan's resting again because Silvers is an interesting play. If you think he's going to play 3 quarters, like if you think Duggan plays more than a quarter, then it's not worth it. But I would play Harris from the Battlehawks, Donnie. That would be my favorite Battlehawk to play because I do think Sailors will get rested this week.
No, I do want to mention as well because we do talk about some of the big names that make it to the NFL. Yeah. There was a report that the Houston's punter is getting NFL calls for training camp. So that's fun. There's a lot of good UFL news coming out. 4 new trademarks for new teams coming out.
Yeah.
Now, the UFL has already said most likely not going to be 4 new teams, but we could see some relocation for teams not getting good attendance and a couple other things like that.
Well, we see it in like other niche sports like the WNBA. The thing that really set them aside was getting a couple star players. So that's obviously valuable. You already mentioned it with more players getting, camp invites and things like that. The next thing to come is expansion. And that's where this league.
I think next year, in the next 2 years, we'll probably have 10 teams instead of 8. And then 2 teams will be relocated. That's what I expect.
That would be huge because then we're talking about potentially like even more growth. You're talking about a wild card. You're talking about like games mattering more. Because right now, I mean, I said it off the top of the show. I think
it makes the 1 seed matter because you can have a bye week for the 1 seed and then a wild card round or whatever you call it, divisional round, before the championship game.
But I think you would also agree with this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the best version of spring football that we've had. Period.
Significant. The merging of the USFL was supremely better than the XFL, but the merging of the two, the amount of talent we have now that it's merged is so high.
Yeah. Even like I go to my parents more in the summertime, and like my mom and I will watch the spring football. And even like a couple of seasons ago, she was like, "Oh, that football's on that you'd watch," or like, "Oh, that little cute thing that you do for a couple of weeks in the spring is on. I'll turn it on for you." Now she's like, "Hey, how's the Michigan Panthers doing?" And that's a big stand. That tells you that, like, yeah, she's still casual. She could probably not name you a single Panther on the team, but she knows the team exists. Like a couple of years ago, she had no idea.
Interestingly enough, I heard that the UFL, the ownership of the league, is so mad that Birmingham doesn't have fans going to their games, which is a fair thing because they're so good. They've won 3 straight and they can't get fans. So if they're bad, they're not going to have any fans. And it's like, do you pull the plug on that city? I don't think they will because Birmingham's won too much recently. So I don't think they can just rip them out of Birmingham. But it's going to happen soon. Like in the next 10 years, Birmingham won't have a team.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I do think with like the legacy of the younger fans, the younger generation, they follow players. They follow DFS sports. And gambling is a big ecosystem to this league, I feel like. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I love football. But part of the reason I love football is because it's such a fun game to sweat. We talked about it because there was a free contest for NASCAR, and I've never been a NASCAR guy, so you can flame me in the comments. That might be the most boring sport to like even think about from a strategic standpoint or follow. Like you're basically picking, races at the bottom of the pack and hoping that you are right on the place, differences. at the end of the race. Like football is just such an easy sport to like, pick a couple guys and then cheer for them. And stacking is available and like it just translates so well to like NFL DFS. I feel like it's an easy, sport.
And with NASCAR too, the pit crews are all so good. Like everyone's getting in and out in like 2 seconds. 2 seconds is a long time now.
Yeah.
Like at least before it was, you had to have a good pit crew. Now everyone just has a great pit crew. It's like,
yeah,
you can't even look at that stuff. It really just is. Did you get enough areas where you could jump places?
Well, baseball has become very analytical too. Like I feel like if you're a mathlete, you can basically play, MLB, from a numbers perspective. Well, football like takes that nuance. You have to stack. There are like for example the battle.
Well, baseball kind of have to stack too.
Yeah, you do.
Get the game right.
You do, but I mean, I guess the stacks are more just a numbers game at that point. Like for example, the Battlehawks with Silvers, they should pass more, and we have seen Silvers have more success in this league. And he's kind of the old veteran like Cookus a couple of weeks ago for the Birmingham Stallions. So I would expect Butler maybe to be more involved because I know Silvers and Butler kind of have chemistry. So you kind of get rewarded from those kind of stands. Speaking of stands, Donnie, and since there's only two of us right now, we were kind of killing some time to see if Gov could make it. I know he was trying, but he was having some computer issues last week. So he might just randomly pop in if he's got some electricity and some juice all of a sudden. But since we are just a two-man crew, do you want to talk about some things that you wanted to do in a lineup? Is there anything like that stands out? I do agree with you. You mentioned the cheap quarterback. I think you almost have to start either with a cheap quarterback or Smith.
Is Smith going to play? Last week we heard Smith was only going to play half the snaps and split with Peasley, but he played so well it didn't matter.
Right. That's what I was going to mention. Alex Peasley, they wanted to get him in, and they didn't. Now, like, is Smith just that good with her? Like, you know what, we're gonna give him another week because if we have an injury, which they had this season, I mean they were the most injured at quarterback. I think they've had the most quarterbacks come in.
Six quarterbacks.
Right. So maybe they're like, you know what, we want to keep momentum. We need a backup quarterback going into the playoffs because we don't want that to be the storyline. Like you mentioned already.
I think Peasley will start. I think he'll play the whole game.
The whole game, you think?
I have no proof of that. That's a guess. But based on how Skip Holtz likes to coach, that's what I expect.
Essentially, the preseason mindset where it's like Smith has already won the backup role. You're going to keep Smith healthy for the playoffs in case of an emergency kind of situation. We'll see what the young guys got. I think that's an interesting element just overall for this league, though. The players want tape, man. They were promised tape. That's part of the reason they're there because this league is a development league for the NFL. So there are guys who want tape. I think Harris for the Battlehawks, if we are projecting Sailors to set the majority of the game, which I am, I think Harris is a tremendous value. That would be something I definitely want to mention. He's only $5K. And we've seen him, get work before, and we know that Battlehawks just will keep scoring. They're going to sub out, but the problem is their third string running back got some work too. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I just feel like Harris is a good play.
I'm not sure. See, I'll look at my dummy for you real quick, but give me just a second to pull it up.
Yeah. Speaking, I'll switch over to a lineup just so we can look at it in this week's current format. But I was going to say there's some injuries. I'll take it off the screen just so I can log in. But there's some injuries in Memphis as well. It looks like Loxley might miss this week, and they would give Isaiah Henney some touches. He's been mainly a special teamer, but he is basically really cheap at wide receiver. So I mentioned off the top, there's like a cheap guy and an expensive guy at every position this week. So it just depends on what you want to do. Like Jamar Smith would be the pay up if you think he's going to be a viable guy.
There's no way Smith plays the full game. I think he's the starter. The offense has looked the best it's looked all year with Smith. You have to play him through the playoffs.
And to be fair, if that's your take, Donnie, like you think like he's still good, but he's not going to get a full workload. We saw Jordan Taimu, for example, cashed all my lineups I played him in, and he got 11 points and basically paid one half. The problem is you are right. If Smith only plays a half, he's got to be super efficient. He might be, but I'm with you. I'd much rather just play a guy at 6K that's going to play the whole game, because even if he has mistakes,
or play the Arlington San Antonio game if you want to play from a
Right.
starting quarterback.
because
You
we
have
know,
to do that if you're going to do a starting quarterback, I think.
and we know Luis Perez is like a professional. You're not going to get a lot of rushing upside from him, but he is auditioning for one last NFL run.
Well, yeah, and we know what their rosters are. They, at the end of the day, they want to get their starters as much reps as possible. You know, this is the last game they're going to play all year. These fringe guys who might be a training camp body, you got to get them one last big highlight play.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're looking for. I personally think Corbin's a good play this week from San Antonio, but you got to be careful playing the teams that are in the playoffs. Be very careful.
Corbin, that he would be a great play, Donnie, but we don't know about Jordan Leggett. Jordan Leggett might come back. I don't even know if he's available in the draft. He is not. Leggett is eligible, essentially, if you think about it from an IR standpoint, to come back this week. And so all the beat reporters say that he might. I don't know why you would activate him for a week. Like, maybe it's that game film thing. Like, he's like, you know what? I need it, coach. Get me in there. If Leggett does play, though, would you still like Corbin, or are you playing Corbin just based on volume?
Because
that's 8,600.
Sure. Listen, there's not going to be a bell cow this week, unless it's a bottom of the end roster guy. You're not going to see a bell cow really. Like McCrary might be a bell cow because he's the worst running back on Michigan.
Well, I even talked about it with the Battlehawks. If Sailors is out or only plays a quarter, they are going to use both of these running backs. We saw it. I mean, they scored touchdowns. Like you're right. I don't think there's maybe Hunter, but Hunter's priced up as well. And
right.
Even still, he's been splitting work with Jones, who I've liked as well. So I'm kind of with you there.
Like the best running back on the board, the highest price running back on the board, is not playing this week. He's out. Toe is not going to play. So that might be a McCrary week. I think McCrary's a very interesting play.
It would be. I want to say there was a couple more wide receivers. Adams is he basically tried to play last week, played very limited because of a hamstring issue that apparently has gotten worse into trying to like work it out and flex it this week in practice. He's officially questionable, but it's a hamstring again. He came into the week thinking he could play and basically wasn't questionable. Came out of the game early with a hamstring, and now he's coming into the week with the same hamstring. I'd want to stay away from Adams this week.
Do you want to start building now and do our
draft?
We
can do that.
Okay, so clear this out. Do you care who does first pick?
No, I think you gave it to me last week, so go ahead and
take
this week.
Seth Williams for DC.
I love that pick, Donnie. You know I was on him. He's a former Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver, so he has NFL experience. I think he's trying to make a quick bounce back. He joined this team late in the year.
He had 4 catches last week.
Yeah, he joined with his exact quote, and this is why I liked him. And I told you about him in the showdown was like, "Coach, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to make an impression like right away." And he did that, and like he gained the trust. Not only did he have 4 catches, he was targeted 8 times.
Yep.
This very guy, if I'm being honest.
His price went down this week too. I don't know why, but it went down. So it was a guy clearly, Delelio, or however you say his name. He had a connection.
They did.
I think they're gonna just, you gotta just get him reps.
He had 200 yards passing in the second half. Like, this team loves to pass, and I wanted to tell you, Powell is out this week, Donnie.
I thought I saw on the depth chart that they posted that he was not.
I think I want to say he's out this week, is what I heard today. I haven't officiated that with the lineups, and if I'm wrong, you guys can tell me in the comments. It would help me out a lot. But I had heard that he had tweaked something, so precautionary, they're going to rest him. So it looks like Antonio Williams and Mickens are going to be the number one targets because Sanders is the backup quarterback, and if they're not playing Jordan Timer, but don't worry, Timer is going to be fine for the playoffs. His is just a precaution.
It is announced that Perez is starting, by the way.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Arlington's going to roll out their older lineup, and
mm-hmm.
It's going to be what it is.
Okay. I'm going to spend some of this money because I think we're going to have it.
Rowland's in the lineup right now, but you're right. Powell's out.
Yeah, Powell is out. Okay, that's good because I was like, that's why I heard all that.
I confuse those two a lot. It's the W in the last name, in the middle of the last name. I think that gets me.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm going to do it. I think it's the safest play on the board. I think he's not had a single week, I think, under 6 targets. And he has multiple under 10. He is the best wide receiver talent-wise in this league to me. It's Justin Hall.
Yeah, he's had 29 targets in the last 2 games.
Yeah. McClellan, by the way, is probably the most consistent quarterback just because he has no bench benching at all possible. This team is out of it. I feel like Johnson doesn't know what he's doing as a coach. He has no creativity or he just basically decides who his starters are and he rolls with it and just it's like he makes no in-game adjustments, Donnie. It's very strange.
Well, McClendon's been the best quarterback for Houston this year.
He has, but I don't know. It's just okay, he comes in the game and then I feel like he could be used as a rusher way more than he is. And I know he's rushed, but everything, all his rushes don't even seem scripted or designed runs. They're just him being an athlete and making a play. I feel like if you had a coach that was into this.
Yeah, it's like watching the Patriots with Drake May last year. It's please give him some designed runs.
Right. It's just Johnson has no creativity, which is sad because I feel with Justin Hall and this rushing quarterback ability, they could do some interesting
You have
things.
2 wide receivers that are very respectable, and you found your quarterback in the middle of the season. I'm not saying that you should have been a playoff team, but you should have looked better than you have.
Yeah. Yeah, this team was very strange because I remember in the beginning of the year, we almost thought Houston would be the worst, and then they surprised us, and then I feel like the coaching staff.
They made a good trade.
Yeah.
Do you want to go snake or back and forth?
We can go back and forth since there's only 2 of us.
I'm just going to get our quarterback out of the way, go to DC, get Mike in there.
The little, yeah. I mean, look, if
I'll listen for it in the broadcast, but I don't know how to say his name.
Well, you know me, I don't have a problem saying a name wrong and that's why I flashed on the screen just so you guys are aware. Transparently, I'm not even trying to say we are right. I'm just saying we have conviction behind why we want to make these players. And
how much people do you think will play a guy who isn't starting at quarterback this week?
Oh, that's a great question.
I'd say probably 15%.
Yeah.
On a guy that just won't start or won't play the whole game.
And let's be honest, some of that is this league's fault, and it is the kind of drawback to this league in the sense of that's why the contests are smaller, and that's why people are frustrated. Because when we get late breaking news about Bryce Perkins being out, and there's no real lead in, and he was 40% owned, Donnie, and it was known he was injured. That's just bad reporting, right? That's just a league.
Yeah, but that's not the league's fault. That's to be fair, Fox should have a bunch of beat reporters out in these games doing the work. They don't. But outside of that, where is the random guy who works for Bleacher Report? There's a bunch of Bleacher Report guys that post crappy articles all the time that would love a chance, and they're not getting this chance.
And there's beautiful guys on Twitter we've shouted them out
Yes.
multiple times. You can shout them out by name. The names aren't coming to me right now because I haven't pulled up Twitter all week, really. I've been kind of off social media. But I want to say one of them is James. I want to say the other one's Mike.
James Larson.
James Larson. That's the first
on
one.
Instagram, XFL analyst. He's been doing it for a long time now.
There's a character on X as well, and then the ref who just follows every spring football. Like it could be the UFL, it could be the XFL. He didn't care. He just loves football. He's a diehard college guy as well. So there are guys that are passionate about this league. It's just unfortunate when you see something like the Perkins situation. And I was celebrating it from an ownership perspective because you see 41% of lineups.
But that was such a last minute call by the organization. The Perkins situation, I feel like could have happened in the NFL. 5 minutes before, you're barely getting the news out.
Yeah, guess you're right. It wouldn't have been 41, and we would have probably still reacted in 5 minutes. But it would have been higher than it should have been.
It would have been 20% on still instead of 40.
But to your point, Donnie, what was it that one week where we knew Matt Corral was not starting for the Stallions? And we knew it for at least 72 hours, I want to say. And I remember that week, whatever week that was, let's just say it was 6. I went and looked at his ownership and he was 6% owned. And that's just ignorance. I don't know if they're donating to the league. Thank you for your charity. That is seriously why you do grind sports like this, because there are just information gaps for sure.
Get to the comments real quick. Football season we're getting ready for our NFL stuff. After the NBA finals, we do start best ball drafts and stuff. And we've never done MMA. Logan probably knows a little bit of MMA, but
no, you know what I like to do with MMA is watch it live and just react in sports bet. MMA is the perfect hangout sport. It's the perfect it's easy transition. I can introduce Donnie to MMA this weekend and be like, Donnie, watch out for this, or this fight's fun to watch, and you don't have to know a whole lot. And you'd be like, oh, based on this little bit of money or this little bit of information, I can make some money and make some fun bets. I do play DFS a little bit for MMA, but I feel like the sports book is the place where MMA profits the most.
I will say, back to this lineup really quick.
Yep.
I did just read something from Larson about how DC is not playing any defensive starters. Their whole defense is done for this game. They will not play.
I think that's smart.
Does that make you want to play any St. Louis? Because St. Louis is bringing out starters, but we don't know for how long. Do you play the St. Louis backup running back?
I told you I think I would.
Okay.
Because even when the games were competitive, he got some workload.
Yeah.
He's talented. But they did say they're going to use the third string running back too.
Well, most people will use their third strings. So
yeah.
It's just a big question mark of which one do you play? And
like I told you earlier, the rumor is if they're going to play any one of their starters extended minutes, it's going to come from the wide receiver room because they feel like that room does not have the most chemistry.
Do we just play the third string back of St. Louis then? Can you pull up their depth chart of what it says? Because I'll pull up what it says on Larson's. But I know Larson has it marked that Sailor's the starter.
I mean, we are playing one DC, so having a bring back from St. Louis does make sense. I think it'd be Howard.
Running back wise from Larson, it's Sailors, Howard's, then the other guy. How much carries did Howard get last week, or generally speaking, this season?
I want to say he got 13 carries. I'm not sure about the receiving work. He's not really a receiving back. He got 1 catch for 9 yards, so he can do it. He got 12 touches, but the third string running back got 8.
I would go with third string. I would go third string.
You to be different, or do you think he's a better play?
I think you play your third strings in the week. If you clearly say this week doesn't matter, you're playing your third stringers, not your backup.
Mm-hmm.
Howard might get 5 carries just to keep his body warm, but I think the other guy's getting 17.
I want to say he's more the receiving back too. So But I mean, like we've definitely played third string running backs. We played it in week 1 and we still cashed. And our
He
running
was
back,
listed as the starter. He ended up being the third string all year, but he was listed as the starter on the depth chart. We were lied to. We didn't play the
it's
third
true.
string.
But that's what I'm saying is like it's one position that we have found in the UFL where you can punt at and take a chance on a guy and still win it on.
This is true.
I mean, because we talked about Corbin briefly with San Antonio. He looks like a great play, but if he's not actually the starter and they go back to some kind of committee, that could be a problem.
Yeah. This is your pick now. Where do you want to go with it?
Okay, so I mentioned how I think Adams is out. I really like the idea. No, I don't want to do that. I was thinking about going with Henney because apparently Isaiah Henney has been getting a lot of work, but I don't like it enough. There's also some openings with Michigan apparently as well with their wide receiver room, but I don't know about that. Do you like anything, Donnie? Because nothing's sticking out.
There is a guy like he scored a wide receiver who scored at least 22 points for 3 weeks straight. Vaughns from Arlington. He has 3 weeks straight of over 20 points.
Yeah, you would go back to it?
Yes.
I'll tell you one guy that I don't want to play. I guess like I'll do the I'm not playing any Chisholm this week. I will not do it. He's probably going to play, but I think this is a rest situation. He got 2 touchdowns this week. Now he's a red zone guy, but I just feel like that's bad chalk. He got that on 4 targets. I don't want to play any.
I mean, not really a rest week in your last game of the season. If he wants to go out there, he's going to go out there, I guess. But
yeah, but I mean, like they're saying, like he rested in practice, like he wasn't a full participant in practice.
Yeah, well,
I'm okay with going Vaughn. Vaughn's made some really spectacular.
Yeah, look at it. Look at his last few games, man. This is just disgusting.
Yeah. Well, if you looked at our lineup, like you look at Hall and you look at Williams, like we're looking at like 10 target guys so far in the lineup.
Right. So if we can get that third string back right,
that could be the difference. So.
Now, this last spot, we're going to have salary left over. This last spot, which defense-wise, I honestly don't know what you play on defense. Because Michigan's not playing their guys. DC was not playing their starters, so you can't play DC's.
I think you play Arlington, man.
But San Antonio is also playing their offensive guys.
Yeah, but San Antonio.
So do you play like a Houston defense who's playing backups?
Could be.
Like, who else? Do you play St. Louis's defense and just say, man, DC is so, like, they're not going to have anybody playing defense?
We can't play St. Louis's defense against a quarterback. I wouldn't do that at all.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I do know this. The San Antonio Brahmas have only averaged 140 yards total in their game recently. That's rushing it and receiving.
That's really bad. I mean, we could just throw in Arlington. I'm not going to argue it. Like, I don't think there's any defense that's like, oh, you got to play it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That leaves us with 10K. Like, to be fair, is there any guy here that's like, oh, you got to play it? Like, not really.
I think it's Corbin. Like we could.
That's where I got to. He's the highest priced player that's going to play all game.
I would play Corbin if I knew he was going to be the starter. But if they go back to who did I say Langford? I can't remember the guy's name now. I know he was with the team earlier and then he was on the IR. And now they're thinking about bringing him back.
Yeah, I think you go Corbin and just hope. Like, this week's going to be a lot of you have to hope you play the guy.
Well, we're playing, I don't know. I think I kind of like Hunter as well, too.
We could go Hunter and just match the defense.
Yeah. Let me see what kind of workload he got. Yeah, he got 13 touches. I mean, that's a lot.
16. 7 with 4 targets, too.
Oh, yeah, with the targets as well. So
yeah, he's been getting about 17 touches a game.
I don't mind this.
And that's the thing. We have 2,000 left, but we're not paying anything for quarterback. That's why. Like, the prices are set, so we're they expect you to pay $9K on a quarterback.
And the only thing you could do is you could say, well, I really think Corbin's the guy. I'm just going to pay up,
Yeah, we can't even get there.
I didn't know if it's good.
You know what? You know who else might be a good play? Roundtree.
Oh yeah. No, apparently the thing about using CJ and
they did this last year. They deactivated one for rest, and then they just rotated every week. And they feel comfortable with, all three of their running backs for some reason.
And that's apparently what they're going to do. CJ is going to start, and then Parsons is going to be the number 2 this week.
Yeah, Person was the guy. Well, wait, Roundtree's not going to. I can't imagine they rest Roundtree.
That's the rumor, but I'm not like you could see. I didn't say that with my chest on it because I don't know what to believe. Like this league switches on a dime.
Well, I know Birmingham will do that. They'll play a certain guy twice, or play a certain guy, have the backup for him, and then the third guy rest.
What I'm saying is they basically said they're going to use 2 main running backs this week. I would assume that it's CJ.
I would assume CJ, or I would assume honestly 90% or 80% Roundtree. Person gets some workload, and this week is Marable's rest.
Oh, I don't know. I do know they want to run the ball though. So if you can get in the mind of Skip Holtz,
can I just have 5 minutes to talk to Skip Holtz about this? Can I get a public press conference, please? Well, I'll go report it.
We did have a good walkie-talkie conversation with that was another thing my mom really loved about this league. She loved how chatty the coaches were. She's like, she was yelling at the TV down here, as if the coach was talking to her. She's like, why is he yelling at me? I'm like, he's not. This league does some fun stuff, I will say that.
So yeah, I personally lean what we had it as beforehand with the St. Louis back.
Yeah, so I think that's the way to go. And just leave. Are we going to leave the 2000 then?
I guess. I mean, St. Louis. First game. Friday's game.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm blank. We're going to go with. I do think he's more of a pass catcher too. I want to see about that because maybe I'm wrong, but I do think he.
Okay, a fun name. To be fair,
the thing I thought is he has a receiving touchdown. That's why.
Missouri State running back.
He's also the fastest of the two. He's really fast. Leggett. I don't know why that name was blank. I knew it would come back to me. There's a rumor that Leggett will be back. But I mean, like you said, they have Tim. I don't know what. I don't know why. The problem is I feel like they've packed their suitcase for the off season a long time ago.
So this running back, Latulas, he had 30 catches in college. He's got hands, but he was mostly used as a receiving back, and then had some rushing attempts.
I did want to mention something about DeLillo. Apparently, one thing that we could definitely see more of, and they were it just because that game was so well in hand and it wasn't competitive. Apparently, he's a lot more of a rusher than he showed Donnie, which is why I love that upside. So because I think they had a pretty.
This should be the highest owned quarterback, right? He should be 40% owned.
I think for the smart guys, he will be, but I think there'll be a huge information gap. I really do. And
realistically speaking, he should be 40% owned. He'll probably end up 28% owned.
Yeah. You watched this week, though, right? Because, when he came into the game, Jordan Tymu had a lead for DC. They were pretty much in command, right? He was.
They winning the game didn't matter. Even if they lost, it didn't matter.
Right, but now
he would have been pulled anyway.
True, but I'm saying that now that DeLillo has to get the lead, he has to play the game from an even perspective. I feel like we're going to see more of that rushing upside.
Oh yeah, he's gonna at least try to prove that he can start for a team next year, even if it's not DC.
And
it might be DC because DC might lose Teamu. Teamu might go back to the NFL.
I think he'll get a shot. The Steelers.
Everyone loves his talent. He's just never put it together. This is the first year we can genuinely say he put it together.
I will be sad though if Bryce Perkins doesn't get like a legit chance. If I'm the Steelers, I'm already calling Bryce Perkins.
See, my thing is, Bryce Perkins at minimum looks just as good as Adrian Martinez did in his MVP season. And Adrian Martinez got a job on an NFL team as the emergency QB all year long with the Jets.
Yep.
Therefore, there's no reason to not call Bryce Perkins.
And not enough gets talked about. The NFL it's such a tier upgrade. Like if you're in the NFL, being on a practice squad is quite the honor, actually, from a talent perspective. Most of the guys in the practice squad are very talented guys. So I just want to mention that as well. Speaking of talent, though, we have the fourth quarter of this playoff game to watch. I think it's about over, isn't it?
I will get a score update for you.
It's I'm just looking at it now. It's 90 to 109. Yeah, Indy
this one's
gonna lose this one. Yeah,
but that means we got another. That sucks for the Pacers. The Pacers really need to get out of this series as soon as possible. OKC is going to be so well rested.
I think rest is going to matter. I think OKC is talented. They're young. I feel like it could be a good finals, but I feel like this will
OKC's been the best team all year. But the Pacers are super fun to watch. So I think it will be a better series than people will let on. Even if it probably will be OKC in 6. But I think it will be OKC in 6 close games. I don't think it will be blowouts.
Yeah, you could be right about that. We'll see. It'll be fun. With that being said, though, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And by the way, he was mentioning NFL coverage. I love our best ball discussion. Like our best ball ranking show might be some of the most fun I have all year. It's a longer show. And by the way, Donnie, the YouTube is rewarding people for doing longer streams now, apparently. So that's going to speak very well to that show because usually we go kind of long on that show, but I feel like it's a great discussion.
I have already been marking notes. Logan's gotten a lot of texts about it. So my best ball brain is working for sure.
I feel like me and you are going to be more in sync than we might have. It's weird. Like you text me about a little inside baseball here, but you text me about Hopkins and I'm like, wow, Donnie and me don't usually align on these old veteran guys, but Hopkins, I'm like, yeah, that's the name. And there's a lot of rookies this year. Rookies are always a fun upside, pick in a best ball because there's a lot of unknown. And whenever there's an unknown or position scarcity, that's a position you want to attack in best ball. With that being said, though, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know it's week 10. If you stuck with us in UFL this long, like and subscribe, please. We keep going from losing subscribers to gaining them, but right now, if you looked at it from the start of the UFL coverage till now, we've gained about 10 subscribers. It really does mean a lot, though, if you guys could keep those numbers growing. So like and subscribe on the way out. It costs you nothing. It helps us out dearly. I appreciate it. Good night, guys.